Hello and welcome to No Drop. On this episode, we're going to talk about rest and just how important rest is for active people. And we're going to define rest in ways that we can actually structure it, just like we do with our workouts, so that we can look at getting rest daily, weekly, monthly, and throughout the year. But before we get into that topic, I wanted to share a quick story from this last week that was just really cool for me and just made me feel really good. It's so rewarding for me when listeners of the podcast let me know how episodes are helping them in their cycling and how they're helping them connect to fitness. And one listener shared with me this last week that the episodes on nutrition was allowing them to sort of break down barriers and advance their cycling to places that they maybe didn't think they were capable of. They had found themselves sort of plateauing, finding it difficult to achieve certain mileage distances or do certain climbs, do a certain amount of elevation. And through listening to the nutrition episodes and then implementing those skills into their riding, they're now taking on rides bigger than they ever thought possible. And them sharing that with me made me feel incredible because the mission of No Drop has always been to help people, no matter where they're at in their cycling, to help them deepen their connection to cycling. So for anybody who's finding positive information here, things that are helping their cycling, please send me a message. Let me know what is working for you. That stuff is so valuable for me, and the feedback makes me feel really amazing. It's just a really cool experience. Other ways that you can support the podcast is wherever you're listening to this, they probably have some sort of way to like the podcast, submit a review, or subscribe. If you can do any of those things, that is very, very helpful for the podcast. And lastly, you can log on to jeffzenfitness.com. And at the top of the website, there's a link to a PayPal and a Venmo. And you can support the podcast by making a donation there. So 3 different ways to support. Send me your story, send me some feedback. You can also submit a review or a rating via whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And third, you can jump on to jeffzenfitness.com to make a donation. The topic of this episode is rest. And rest is typically thought of sort of as like an afterthought to activity, right? Activity gets a lot of the praise as far as, oh, I want to be stronger, so I'm going to do these activities. So rest is often pitched as an afterthought. However, in order to have this discussion, we need to reframe our mindset a little bit. And we need to understand that rest is the whole point. Don't think of rest as a way to hack your ability to be active. Instead, think of being active as a way to hack your rest. Everything that happens when you're resting, post-exercise, is incredibly positive. Your muscles are repairing themselves, they're getting stronger, your cardiovascular system is adapting and getting stronger, you're rehydrating different systems of your body. Rest is where everything positive happens. The workout on the other hand, is where you do all of the damage. The workout is actually the negative part of this equation. So if we're trying to build stronger, get better, get faster, we're really looking to get the best rest that we possibly can. And we're looking to use our activity as a way to get the most benefit from our rest periods. So take that little mindset shift with me, and let's move forward and start to talk about how we can break down rest and structure it in a way that just aligns with what our body needs. Some of the ideas I'm about to talk about are just sort of my personal feelings on rest and how to structure it, but it's very heavily influenced by just personal training knowledge. When I got very into weightlifting, this is before bicycles, when I got very into weightlifting, I was coming from a place where I had no history of physical fitness. Growing up, I was not active. I did not play sports. It was really until I was into my late 20s that I actually discovered how to be active and that I enjoyed it. So the very first thing that I did when I started getting active is I thought, I want to know about this so I don't get injured. And at that point, I got certified as a personal trainer. And so a lot of my feelings or ideas about how to pursue fitness and how to connect with fitness in a way that's constructive and healthy come from not only trial and error, but come from this personal trainer background. So when we talk about rest, we're going to talk about periodizing rest. How do we structure our rest so that our body can get the most recovery and build itself as strong as possible? When I think about rest, I think about 4 different opportunities that I have for rest. One is daily rest. The second is weekly rest. Third, the idea of quarterly rest. And fourth is the idea of annual rest. So we're looking at rest as far as how do we implement these either daily, weekly, quarterly, or annually. With the idea of daily rest, we're really looking at how can we give ourselves some time every single day to just be in a place where we're not mentally or physically stimulated. Some examples of daily rest would be taking a nap. It would be relaxing on the couch, maybe meditating, maybe doing something that is a very light physical activity. A friend of mine said that gardening for them is their form of daily rest. They don't have a large garden or a yard that takes, physical labor to maintain. They just have some plants on their porch of their apartment, and they find that tending to those plants is very calming for them, very meditative. So being able to find times, or one time, if you're very busy, to implement some daily rest is huge. Let's look at a minimum of probably 15 minutes here, maybe a maximum of 30 to 45 minutes. We're not really asking for much in this daily rest, but it's just a little bit of time every day to let our bodies reset and let our mind rest. After daily rest, we need to look at our weeks. And if we are training, we need to think about how many days we're on and how many days we're off. No matter how fit you are, I would definitely encourage taking 1 day a week off of your primary activity. So this is the idea of weekly rest. At least 1 day every single week, you take that day off from structured physical activity. you consider that a non-training day. So if you can, definitely encourage complete rest. If you can afford to just spend a day at home, doing things around the house, being on the couch a little bit more, that is how we approach weekly rest. So now we're going to stretch out the timeline a little bit longer, and we're going to talk about quarterly rest. Within quarterly rest, you are taking 1 week off, and you're cutting your volume and your intensity by at least 50%. So that is a very drastic decrease in physical output when we look at it both from a volume standpoint. So you're cutting the amount of time you're training in half, but you're also cutting the intensity in half. So this is a very light week. You can still maintain your primary physical activity, but there are no hard efforts, probably nothing above a zone 2. Maybe you tap zone 3, but that's it. Quarterly rest is really important, and it can be used in a way that's very beneficial. Let me go over that real quick. If we are structured in how we're connecting with our activity and we're trying to work towards certain goals, typically what you'll do is you'll work on one system of fitness. So let's say you're trying to, build muscle. So you'll do a phase where you'll build some muscle, and then you'll transition out of that muscle building phase and say, okay, now I have this new muscle. Now I want to work on making that muscle endure. I want to work on endurance. So we stack these goals one after another, which is very smart because we get to be specific, and specificity is a very important part of training. And then we get to move on to the next specific goal. Eventually, we combine those goals, and now we're even stronger and fitter than we were before. However, to get the biggest benefit out of those periods that we're training in, we need to have a time to rest and get ready for the next training phases. So quarterly rest gives your body an opportunity to catch up and do all of the repair work and enhancement work necessary so you can get the biggest benefit out of those training periods. So quarterly rest, once a quarter, we're taking 7 days, a full week, and we are cutting both of our volume and our intensity by at least 50%. The very last form of rest is annual rest. And what annual rest is, if you look at your whole year of training, annual rest means you're taking 1 month off of your primary activity. That doesn't mean you have to stop biking altogether, but during this month, you're not looking to biking to increase your fitness. You're not looking to make any gains specifically from cycling. This is a very, very important type of rest. If you want to be fit for your entire life, taking 1 month off a year to let your body catch up, repair itself, do everything that it needs to do, clean the system out, do everything that it needs to do to be robust for those years going into the future. Annual rest is a very important concept. With a lot of cyclists, a lot of racers, you'll typically, in America, you'll hear that they take the month of maybe October or November, take that month off of biking completely. And what they'll do is they'll do a different activity. And with a lot of cyclists, since cycling is a lot of endurance work and it's a lot of lean muscle, typically what a lot of cyclists will do is they will do a pretty intense weightlifting regimen for that month that they have off. So for annual rest, when you're taking your month off, that doesn't need to be a month away from activity, period. The way it works is, let's say you're a cyclist or a runner, 2 cardio activities. For that month, you are just using those activities to be social. You're keeping it zone 2. You're keeping your rides very short. There's no centuries during this month. There's no running marathons during this month. However, you're turning to a different system in the body, and you're going to work on targeting that. So, strength building, muscle building, weightlifting, those types of activities would be okay and encouraged to pursue during your annual rest. This way, you're giving the systems in your body that are stressed out some time to rest and some time to recuperate and finish doing all of the repair work that they need to do. And then you might use some other systems in your body and tap into those to still bring somewhat of a benefit to your overall fitness picture, but you're not going to come out of that month, jump on a bike, and be the fastest you've ever been. You're going to lose a little bit. You're going to have to make it up. However, big picture, long term, you will always be faster. Within a couple months of your month of rest, that's annual rest we're talking about, within a couple months, all these systems are going to start working together, and you're going to have that increased muscle mass and that increased neurological activation that you got from that weightlifting strength building period. All that stuff is going to come together, and then you'll be a stronger version than before you went into that annual rest and recovery. To go over those again, first we have daily rest, and that is finding some time every single day that we can be restful. Then we have weekly rest, and weekly rest is one day every week that we're taking off of structured exercise, and if possible, we're really trying to encourage complete rest during that day. Then we have the idea of quarterly rest, and quarterly rest is taking 1 week off once a quarter, and we're cutting our volume and our intensity by at least 50%. And last, we have the idea of annual rest. An annual rest is taking 1 month off per year from your primary activity. You can still do stuff for fun, socially, but you gotta keep the intensity low. If possible, bring some sort of different new focus to your fitness routine during this month. If you do a lot of cardio, do some weightlifting for a month. And that encompasses how to look at rest. Remember, as you're thinking about rest and thinking about the significance of rest for you, just remember everything positive is happening when you are resting. And of course, this is a yin and a yang kind of thing. We can't get good rest without activity, and we can't be good at our activity without getting rest. So these things go hand in hand. But the rest, that's where you're getting stronger, that's where you're getting better, that's where you're getting faster, is when you're resting. So take it very seriously. Try to think about it just like you think about your workouts and prioritizing your workouts and being diligent. Be diligent about your rest. Your body will thank you. Your fitness is going to skyrocket. With more rest, it's just more opportunities for your body to build even stronger. And for anybody who, is maybe thinking, well, what is rest? How do I know if I'm resting? That is a great question. And if anybody is sort of on the fence about what am I doing? Is it restful or is it not restful? here are some criteria that you can follow to make sure that what you're pursuing is actually rest. I think rest needs to allow you to both mentally relax, and it also needs to keep your heart rate low. That's sort of how we can think about rest, how we can qualify it, how we can quantify it, how we can structure it. So my hope is that by knowing these 4 different opportunities for rest, daily rest, weekly rest, quarterly rest, and annual rest, that being able to structure it like that will allow people to just be mindful of how much rest versus how much activity I'm getting. One thing that we didn't talk about in this episode is sleep. And I was sort of on the fence of sleep is kind of its own thing. It's definitely a type of rest, but sleep is an area that is so critical and so, it's just kind of its own thing. So we're not talking about sleep as a form of rest. All these different rest strategies and structures that we went over, these are all assuming that you're getting good sleep. Maybe we'll do a podcast on sleep at some point where we can really dive into it and talk about everything that happens during sleep. However, I just want to say that just because we didn't talk about it in this episode doesn't mean that sleep isn't important. Sleep is incredibly, incredibly important. And before you connect with a really good rest routine, getting a really good sleep schedule should be a huge priority. Sleep is critical. So maybe at some point we'll talk a little bit more about sleep, but if you are getting good sleep, if you can stack these other ways of rest on top of that sleep, the sky's the limit for your fitness at that point, as far as what you can build, what you can accomplish, how strong you can get. Just remember that this mindset that we chose to be part of at the beginning of this episode, where we're looking at rest as the whole point. Remember, we're using our activity in order to get the best rest. If these ideas are new to you, please start experimenting with them. See where it takes you on your fitness journey. I would love to get feedback and hear from people how rest is helping them achieve their goals. I think it's an amazing, amazing thing. And there's something special about, it's not just all about the work and the suffering, but a big, big part of this equation is about being able to turn off, being able to chill. I love how complex this is and the different worlds that you have to live in. So please, as you're on this restful journey, please share your experiences with me. I can't wait to hear about it. And until next time, ride safe.